rests along the edge of the window frame has been there for some time now, neither growing nor fading, simply present in the way that light sometimes is when there is no particular reason for it to change. It touches the surface beneath it without urgency, without purpose beyond the fact of its presence, and the surface receives this light in the same manner, neither resisting nor responding, simply allowing what arrives to remain for as long as it chooses to remain. There is a quality to the air in this space that suggests nothing has moved through it recently. No disturbance has passed this way. No current has found reason to alter its position. The air occupies the room in the way that air does when left to itself, filling the distance between one surface and another, residing in the gaps and corners, present but undemanding, requiring nothing, offering nothing beyond its own quiet existence. Along the far wall, where the plaster meets the skirting board, there is a line that continues without interruption from one end of the room to the other, a simple border that marks where one surface ends and another begins. This line has remained in its position for a considerable time, unchanged by the passing of hours or days, undisturbed by any force that might have reason to alter its course. It simply continues, as it has continued, as it will continue, marking a boundary that requires no observation, no acknowledgement, no attention whatsoever. The ceiling above maintains its distance from the floor below, this space between them neither expanding nor contracting, held in a kind of permanent arrangement that asks nothing of the room itself. What exists between these two surfaces is simply space, empty and unoccupied, filled only with air that has no destination, no purpose, no requirement to be anything other than what it already is. In one corner where two walls meet the ceiling, there is a slight variation in the paint, a place where the color shifts almost imperceptibly from one shade to another, so subtle that it requires no notice, deserves no particular consideration. It has been this way for as long as the paint has existed on the wall, neither more noticeable nor less noticeable than it was when it first came to be, simply a fact of the surface, a minor detail that exists without significance. The window itself, set into the wall at a height that allows light to pass through it, remains exactly where it was placed, held within its frame by the same forces that have held it there since its installation. The glass within this frame permits light to enter while preventing air from passing, performing its function without effort, without thought, without any awareness of the role it serves. It is simply glass, in a frame in a wall, and these facts require no elaboration, no expansion, no further consideration. Through this window, beyond the glass, there is a view that extends outward into a space that is not this room, a distance that continues beyond what can be seen from this particular position. What exists in that distance is of no immediate consequence to what exists here, in this space, where the air remains undisturbed and the light continues to rest upon surfaces that have no objection to its presence. The door, closed within its frame, divides this room from whatever space exists beyond it, creating a boundary that is neither absolute nor permanent, but which currently remains in place, undisturbed by any hand, unmoved by any force. The handle of this door, a simple mechanism of metal and spring, waits in a position of rest, neither turned nor pulled, simply existing in the state of inaction that is its natural condition when left alone. Beneath the window, a radiator extends along the wall, its surface neither warm nor cold at this particular moment, simply present, occupying the space it has always occupied, connected to pipes that run through the walls, part of a system that exists throughout the building, inactive now, requiring nothing, demanding nothing, simply there in the way that objects are there when they are not in use, when they are not needed, when they serve no immediate function. The floorboards beneath run parallel to one another, each one laid beside its neighbor in a pattern that repeats across the entire floor, a series of wooden planks that have remained in their positions for years, bearing the weight of whatever rests upon them without complaint, without resistance, simply accepting what is placed there and supporting it in the manner that floors do, unthinkingly, automatically, without any need for acknowledgement or appreciation. Where the walls meet one another, they form corners, right angles that divide the room into its distinct sections, boundaries that are so familiar, so expected, that they require no observation. These corners collect shadows when the light is positioned in certain ways, holds darkness when there is no light at all. But at this moment they are simply corners, neither light nor dark, simply present, simply there, performing no function beyond their structural purpose. The skirting board that runs along the base of each wall maintains its position between the floor and the plaster, a strip of painted wood that serves to cover the join, to create a finished edge, to mark the transition from vertical to horizontal. It has collected a fine layer of dust along its upper edge, particles that have settled there over time, finding a surface upon which to rest. And there they remain, undisturbed, unnoticed, requiring no attention, no removal, simply existing as dust exists, as particles exist, without significance, without meaning. Above, the ceiling holds its position with the same steadiness it has maintained since it was first constructed. Plaster spread across joists, smoothed into an even surface, painted a neutral color that reflects light without absorbing too much of it, without creating too much brightness. This ceiling is simply there, overhead, marking the upper boundary of the room, containing the space beneath it, requiring nothing, expecting nothing, simply fulfilling the role of ceiling in the way that ceilings do, silently, constantly, without variation. The light continues to rest where it has been resting, neither growing brighter nor dimming, maintained in its current state by conditions that exist beyond this room, beyond this space, conditions that have no relevance here, that require no consideration here, that exist independently of what happens within these four walls. The light is simply light, doing what light does, existing where it exists, falling where it falls, touching what it touches, requiring no response, no reaction, no acknowledgement whatsoever. In the center of the room there is an expanse of floor, uncovered, unoccupied, simply space that could hold something but currently holds nothing, a vacant area that extends from one side to the other, that exists in a state of emptiness that is neither good nor bad, neither desired nor undesired, simply what is, simply what remains, simply what continues to be. The walls themselves covered in their paper or paint, maintain the boundaries of the room, separating this space from adjacent spaces, creating an enclosure that defines what is inside and what is outside, what belongs to this room and what belongs elsewhere. These walls stand without effort, without thought, held upright by their construction, by the materials from which they are made, by the foundations beneath and the roof above, part of a structure that continues to exist because there is no reason for it not to exist, no force acting upon it that might cause it to cease. Along one wall there may be a picture rail, a narrow strip of wood running horizontally at a height suitable for hanging frames, though no frames currently hang from it. No hooks pierce its surface, no weight pulls upon it. It is simply there, serving a potential function, offering a possibility that remains unrealized, content to exist without purpose, without use, without any requirement that it be anything other than a strip of wood fixed to a wall. The architrave around the door, the decorative frame that surrounds the opening, remains in its position, mitered corners meeting at precise angles, painted the same color as the skirting board, part of the decorative system of the room, serving no structural purpose, offering no functional benefit, simply existing because it was placed there, because someone at some time decided that doors should be framed in this way, and so it remains, unquestioned, unremarked upon, simply there. Where the window frame meets the wall, there is a slight gap, a narrow space that allows for expansion and contraction, for the natural movement that occurs in buildings as temperatures change, as seasons shift, as time passes. This gap has been filled with a flexible sealant, a compound that prevents drafts while accommodating movement, and it performs this function without fanfare, without attention, simply doing what it was designed to do, year after year, unnoticed, unremarked, requiring nothing beyond its own existence. The glass in the window, perfectly transparent, allows vision to pass through it in both directions, permitting those inside to see out, those outside to see in, though at this moment there is no one to look either way, no gaze to pass through the glass, no eye to register what might be visible beyond. The glass simply remains, a barrier and a window, an obstacle and an opening, serving both functions simultaneously, without contradiction, without difficulty, without any awareness of the paradox it represents. Beyond the window, at a distance that is neither close nor far, there may be other buildings, other structures that occupy the landscape, that fill the view, that create a skyline or a scene, though what precisely exists there is of no consequence to this room, to this space, to this moment. Whatever is beyond remains beyond, separate, distinct, part of a different area, a different zone, unconnected to what happens here, except by virtue of proximity, by the simple fact of existing in the same general location, under the same sky, within the same stretch of land. The air in the room continues to be what it has been, neither warmer nor cooler than it was moments ago, maintained at a temperature that requires no adjustment, no intervention, no action of any kind. It surrounds the surfaces, fills the spaces, occupies the voids, doing so without effort, without thought, simply being air in the way that air is, present but invisible, substantial but intangible, necessary but unremarkable. In the corner where the walls meet, where the shadows sometimes gather, there is nothing at this moment to observe, nothing that requires attention, simply the architectural fact of two surfaces joining, creating an angle, forming a space where the room folds in upon itself. This corner is no different from the other corners, no more significant, no less important, simply one of four that define the perimeter of the room, that mark where the space ends and the structure begins. The door handle, that mechanism of simple engineering, remains in its resting position, the latch engaged, the spring compressed to the degree it always is when the door is closed, the metal neither warm nor cold to any touch that might reach for it, though no touch currently reaches, no hand currently grasps, no finger currently presses. It simply waits in the position it occupies, ready to function if needed, content to remain still if not, indifferent to whether it is used or ignored, whether it serves or simply exists. Along the wall opposite the window, where less light reaches, the surface appears slightly darker, not through any property of the wall itself, but simply through the absence of direct illumination, the natural result of light coming from one direction and creating gradations of brightness across the space it enters. This darker area is no more significant than the lighter areas, no less real, simply a consequence of physics, of the way light travels and diminishes, spreads and fades, interacts with surfaces and air. The floor continues beneath everything, supporting the room, bearing the weight of walls and ceiling, of air and light, of whatever small objects might rest upon its surface, though at this moment there is very little resting there, very little to support beyond the structure itself. The floor performs this function without strain, without difficulty, designed to bear far more than currently rests upon it, capable of much more than is currently asked of it, patient in its strength, silent in its service. Where the floorboards join one another, there are fine lines, gaps measured in millimeters, spaces that allow for movement, for expansion, for the natural behavior of wood as humidity changes, as temperature varies, as time progresses. These gaps are so narrow as to be almost invisible, requiring close inspection to notice, and even then deserving no particular attention, simply facts of construction, necessities of installation, details that exist because they must exist, not because they are interesting or worthy of note. The paint on the walls, applied years ago perhaps, or months or weeks, has dried to a uniform finish, a surface that is neither glossy nor completely matte, somewhere between the two, a choice made by someone at some time for reasons that need not be remembered, need not be known, need not be considered at all. The paint simply is, covering the plaster, protecting it, providing a finished appearance, serving its purpose without requiring acknowledgement, without expecting praise, without needing anything at all. In the space above the door, the wall continues upward to meet the ceiling. This section of plaster, neither more nor less interesting than any other section, simply part of the continuous surface that wraps around the room, that encloses the space, that creates the boundary between inside and outside. This area above the door receives light reflected from other surfaces, a gentle illumination that arrives indirectly, that lands softly, that rests without intensity. The windowsill, that horizontal surface beneath the window frame, extends into the room slightly, creating a narrow ledge, A small platform that could hold objects but currently holds nothing, or perhaps holds only dust, those fine particles that settle everywhere, that accumulate slowly, that require periodic removal but not constant attention, not immediate action, not urgent intervention. The dust can remain where it is, undisturbed, unimportant, simply existing as dust does, as particles do, without consequence, without meaning. The light that enters through the window travels in straight lines, bending only where it must, where it encounters surfaces, where it reflects or refracts, otherwise maintaining its path from source to destination, from outside to inside, from bright to less bright, from point of origin to point of arrival. This light asks nothing of the room, imposes nothing upon it, simply arrives, simply exists, simply illuminates, doing so without purpose, without intention, without any goal beyond the physical necessity of traveling from where it begins to where it ends. The ceiling above holds a light fixture, perhaps, or perhaps it is smooth and uninterrupted, unmarked by any fitting, any outlet, any provision for artificial illumination. Whether the fixture exists or not, whether light can be called upon or not, at this moment it makes no difference, changes nothing, alters nothing about the room, about the space, about the quality of what exists here. The ceiling simply continues, overhead, present, constant, unchanging. Along the edges where the ceiling meets the walls there is a line, sometimes straight, sometimes slightly irregular, where one surface transitions to another, where horizontal becomes vertical, where the architectural boundaries are defined. This line continues around the entire perimeter of the room, marking the upper limit, defining where the walls stop and the ceiling begins, a necessary border that requires no observation, no contemplation, no thought of any kind. The room itself, this collection of surfaces and boundaries, of space and air, of light and shadow, exists without effort, without intention, without any awareness of its own existence. It is simply what it is, a volume contained within walls, beneath a ceiling, above a floor, separate from what surrounds it, distinct from what lies beyond its boundaries, yet connected through those same boundaries, part of a larger structure, part of a building, part of an environment that extends outward in all directions. The air continues to occupy the space, filling it completely, leaving no void, no vacuum, no absence of substance, yet taking up no room, requiring no allocation of space, simply being present in the way that air is always present, invisible and essential, surrounding and permeating, everywhere and nowhere, all at once and not at all. In the corner opposite the door, where two walls meet at their appointed angle, there is nothing to distinguish this corner from any other, nothing to make it special, nothing to make it worthy of notice. It is simply another corner, another meeting of surfaces, another fold in the architecture, another angle in the geometry that defines this space. It holds its position as it has always held its position, unchanged, unaltered, unmoved by time or circumstance. The window frame, constructed of wood or perhaps of some composite material, surrounds the glass, holds it in place, provides a structure within which the pane can sit, secure and stable, protected from forces that might otherwise dislodge it, that might cause it to shift or fall. This frame has been painted, probably the same color as other woodwork in the room, though perhaps not. Perhaps a different color was chosen, a contrast created, a distinction made. Whatever the color, it remains what it is, applied and dried, fixed and permanent, requiring nothing, changing nothing. The view through the window, whatever it may be, remains unchanged from moment to moment, or changes so slowly that no difference can be perceived, no alteration noted, no transformation observed. What exists beyond exists independently of this room, of this space, of this moment, continuing in its own way, following its own patterns, subject to its own forces, unconnected to what happens here except by the accident of proximity, by the coincidence of location. Beneath the floorboards, beneath the room itself, there are other spaces, other areas, other voids and structures that make up the complete building. Layers of construction that support what is above, that create the foundation upon which everything rests. These spaces beneath are not visible from here, not accessible from this position, simply understood to exist because buildings require such things, because structures need foundations, because nothing stands without something beneath it to hold it up. The walls, solid and opaque, prevent vision from passing through them, create privacy, establish boundaries, separate this space from adjacent spaces, this room from other rooms, this area from the corridor or passage or chamber that lies beyond. They perform this function completely, without compromise, without gaps or openings beyond the door and window, simply standing there, doing what walls do, being what walls are, serving their purpose without thought, without awareness, without any need for recognition or appreciation. The door itself, that panel of wood or composite material that fills the opening in the wall, hangs on hinges that allow it to swing, to open and close, to provide access or deny it, depending on its position. At this moment it is closed, the latch engaged, the barrier complete, the separations maintained between inside and outside, between here and there, between this room and what lies beyond its threshold. The air in the room has been here for some time, molecules mixing slowly, currents move all imperceptibly, circulation occurring at a rate too slow to sense, too gentle to detect, simply air being air, doing what air does when left to itself, when not disturbed by fans or breezes, by opening doors or moving bodies, simply existing in a state of near stillness, near stasis, near perfect calm. The light continues, as it has continued, as it will continue, falling where it falls, resting where it rests, illuminating what it illuminates, casting shadows where objects block its path, creating gradations of brightness across surfaces, variations of tone that shift imperceptibly as the source moves in its slow arc, as the hours progress, as the day proceeds on its course, independent of this room, independent of this space, following patterns that existed long before this building was constructed and will continue long after it is gone. Along the base of the wall, where the skirting board meets the floor, there is a fine line, a junction where two surfaces come together, where wood meets wood, where one element of the room's construction touches another. This line extends around the perimeter, marking the boundary between vertical and horizontal, between wall and floor, between what stands and what lies flat, a continuous border that requires no maintenance, no attention, no consideration of any kind. The ceiling, that surface overhead, maintains its distance, neither rising nor falling, held in position by the structure of the building, by joists and beams, by the engineering that keeps buildings standing, that prevents collapse, that maintains the integrity of the space. This ceiling is neither interesting nor boring, neither beautiful nor plain, simply present, simply there, simply existing in the way that ceilings exist, overhead and overlooked, necessary and ignored. In the center of the room, that expanse of floor that stretches from wall to wall, there is space, unoccupied space, empty space, available space, though availability implies potential use, and no use is implied here. No use is suggested, no use is required. The space simply is, neither waiting to be filled nor rejecting what might fill it, neither welcoming nor forbidding, simply neutral, simply present, simply there. The window, set into its frame, set into the wall, continues to allow light to pass, continues to separate inside from outside, continues to perform its function without effort, without thought, without any awareness of the service it provides, the role it plays, the purpose it serves in this room, in this building, in this structure that stands where it stands, that occupies this particular portion of Earth, that exists in this particular location. The walls hold their positions, each one marking a boundary, each one defining a limit, each one creating a separation between what is inside and what is outside, between this room and what surrounds it, between the air contained within and the air that exists beyond. These walls stand without question, without doubt, without any uncertainty about their position, their purpose, their reason for being precisely where they are. The paint, that thin layer of pigment and binder spread across the plaster, continues to cover the walls, continues to provide a finished surface, continues to exist in its dried state, neither wet nor capable of becoming wet again without the application of new paint. Simply there, simply covering, simply providing the appearance that was desired when it was applied, whenever that application occurred, however long ago that might have been. The door handle maintains its position, that curved or straight piece of metal that provides a means of operating the latch, of opening and closing the door, of controlling access to the room, though at this moment no control is needed, no access is required, no operation is necessary. The handle simply waits, as it has waited, as it will continue to wait, ready to serve if called upon, content to remain still if not. Along the floor, the boards continue their parallel arrangement, each one lying beside its neighbor, each one maintaining its position relative to the others, the pattern repeating from one end of the room to the other, from one wall to the opposite wall, a regularity that requires no thought, no attention, no observation, simply existing as patterns exist, as order exists, as arrangements exist when they are made and left undisturbed. The light shifts imperceptibly, perhaps, or remains constant, or changes too slowly to notice, too gradually to perceive, the alteration occurring over minutes or hours rather than seconds, a progression so gentle that any single moment appears identical to the moment before it, to the moment that follows it, to all the moments that surround it in time. The air, that invisible substance that fills the room, continues to maintain its temperature, its pressure, its composition, neither gaining nor losing oxygen, neither becoming stale nor remaining fresh, simply being air, existing in the space, occupying the volume, present but unnoticed, necessary but unremarked, essential but ignored. The surfaces throughout the room, all of them, every wall and floor and ceiling, every door and window and skirting board, maintain their positions, hold their forms, continue to be what they are, serving their purposes, fulfilling their functions, doing so without complaint, without pride, without any emotional response whatsoever, simply existing as surfaces exist, as structures exist, as physical objects exist in physical space. The distance between one wall and another remains constant, the width of the room unchanged, the breadth of the space unaltered, the measurements the same as they were when the room was first constructed, when the walls were first erected, when the structure was first completed. This distance asks nothing, requires nothing, simply is what it is, neither too wide nor too narrow, neither generous nor cramped, simply the distance it happens to be. The height from floor to ceiling, that vertical measurement, remains unchanged as well. The room neither taller nor shorter than it was. The space neither more nor less voluminous than it has been. The capacity unchanged. The dimensions constant. The geometry fixed in place by the construction, by the building, by the decisions made when the structure was designed and erected. The corners, all four of them, hold their angles, maintain their geometry, continue to mark the places where walls meet, where surfaces join, where the perimeter of the room folds back upon itself, creating the enclosed space, defining the boundaries, establishing the limits of what is inside and what is outside, what belongs to this room and what belongs elsewhere. The windowsill, that narrow ledge, continues to exist beneath the window, continues to extend slightly into the room, continues to provide a horizontal surface at the base of the frame, serving as a transition between the window and the wall, between the opening and the solid surface, between what admits light and what blocks it. The architrave around the door, those decorative strips of wood, maintain their position, frame the opening, provide a finished appearance, serve their aesthetic function without requiring acknowledgement, without seeking appreciation, without needing anything beyond their own existence, their own presence, their own quiet service to the visual coherence of the room. The light fixture, if one exists, or the smooth expanse of ceiling, if one does not, remains as it is, unchanged, unaltered, neither more nor less present than it was, than it is, than it will be, simply there, or not there, functional or merely structural, significant or irrelevant depending on circumstance, on need, on the presence or absence of darkness that might require addressing. The floor beneath continues to support everything above it, continues to bear the weight without strain, without complaint, without any indication of effort, simply doing what floors do, what they have always done, what they were designed to do, performing their function with perfect consistency, with absolute reliability, with complete indifference to recognition or reward. The room, this space, this volume of air contained within surfaces, beneath a ceiling, above a floor, surrounded by walls, exists without purpose beyond its existence, without meaning beyond its presence, without significance beyond the simple fact that it is here, that it occupies this position, that it takes up this space, that it continues to be what it is, moment after moment, hour after hour, unchanging, unaltering, simply remaining, simply continuing, simply being. The texture of the walls where the paint has dried over the plaster creates a surface that is neither perfectly smooth nor noticeably rough, somewhere between the two extremes. A finish that was achieved through the application of tools, through the spreading of material, through the drying and setting that occurs when wet substances are exposed to air. This texture exists across the entire surface of each wall, consistent in its slight irregularity, uniform in its gentle variation, neither deliberate pattern nor accidental flaw, simply the result of process, the outcome of method, the consequence of technique. The door, in its closed position, creates a seal of sorts between the room and what lies beyond. Not a perfect seal, not an airtight closure, but a separation nonetheless, a division that keeps most of what is inside from moving outside, most of what is outside from entering inside. The gap beneath the door, that narrow space between the bottom edge and the floor, allows some exchange, some passage of air, some connection between spaces. But this exchange occurs so slowly, so gradually, that it affects nothing, changes nothing, alters nothing about the quality of air in either space. The radiator beneath the window, painted white perhaps, or perhaps left in its natural metal finish, consists of sections joined together, creating a series of channels through which water can flow when the heating system is active, though at this moment the system is inactive. The water is still. The radiator serves no warming function. It simply occupies its space along the wall, mounted at a height that keeps it clear of the floor, positioned beneath the window where radiators traditionally are placed, fulfilling its potential purpose through mere presence rather than through actual operation. The floorboards, examined more closely, show the grain of the wood from which they were cut, lines and patterns that run along their length, evidence of growth, of tree rings, of the living material from which these boards were fashioned, though that life ceased long ago, and what remains is simply material, simply substance, simply wood in its processed form, cut and planed and finished and laid, serving now as surface rather than as structure, as floor rather than as tree. Where the light falls most directly, near the window, the surfaces appear brighter, more visible, more defined in their details, while further from the window, deeper into the room, the same surfaces exist in slightly less illumination, requiring no more light to continue existing, to continue being what they are, simply appearing different to any eye that might observe them, though no such observation currently occurs, no such comparison currently takes place. The hinges on the door, 2 or perhaps 3 of them, mounted on one edge, allow the door to pivot, to swing in an arc, to move from closed to open, from blocking the doorway to revealing it, though at this moment they perform no such movement, simply holding the door in its current position, bearing its weight without motion, without rotation, without any of the action for which they were designed, content to remain still, to wait, to serve only through their potential rather than through their activity. The window frame, where it meets the glass, holds that pane in place through a combination of materials, perhaps putty, perhaps rubber seals, Perhaps small pieces of trim that press the glass against the frame, securing it, keeping it from rattling, from shifting, from moving in response to wind or vibration. These materials, whatever they may be, perform their function invisibly, unnoticeably, their presence known only through the result they achieve, the stability they provide, the stillness they maintain. The view beyond the window, if one were to look, might include sky, might include buildings, might include trees or ground or any combination of these elements, arranged in whatever manner the location and orientation of the window allows. But these things beyond exist in their own space, in their own context, part of a larger world that continues independently, that proceeds according to its own patterns, that requires no observation from this room, no acknowledgement from this space, no connection beyond the simple fact of physical proximity. The air in the room contains particles, microscopic elements that float suspended, too small to see, too light to settle quickly, simply present in the atmosphere, part of what makes up air, what gives it substance, what allows it to carry sound, to transmit pressure, to fill space in a way that vacuum cannot. These particles move slowly, drifting on currents too gentle to perceive, circulating in patterns too complex to predict, simply being where they are, moving as they move, existing as they exist. The corners of the room, where walls meet ceiling, create edges that define the boundaries of the space, that mark where one surface ends and another begins, where horizontal transitions to vertical, where the room's geometry becomes most clear, most defined, most evident in its construction. These edges continue around the perimeter, forming a rectangle or square when viewed from above, when imagined in plan, when considered in terms of shape rather than in terms of volume. The skirting board, painted to match or contrast with the walls, shows in places where the paint has covered previous paint, layers accumulated over time, over years, over the course of the room's existence, each application adding its own thin coating, its own color, its own finish, though all but the most recent layer remain hidden, invisible beneath what covers them, irrelevant except as history, as record, as evidence of time past. The door frame, like the window frame, provides structure, provides support, provides a finished edge to the opening it surrounds, creating a border between wall and doorway, between solid and space, between what blocks and what allows passage. This frame consists of pieces of wood joined at corners, meeting at angles, creating a rectangular opening through which movement can occur when the door is not present, when the door is open, when the barrier is removed. The light that fills the room, though it comes primarily from the window, also reflects from surface to surface, bouncing from wall to floor, from ceiling to wall, from one location to another, gradually diminishing with each reflection, gradually losing intensity, gradually spreading throughout the space until it reaches an equilibrium, a distribution that changes only as the source changes, only as the sun moves, only as time progresses through its cycles. The temperature of the room, neither particularly warm nor particularly cool, exists at some point on the scale between extremes, at some degree that requires no adjustment, no intervention, no action to make it more comfortable, more suitable, more appropriate. This temperature is simply what it is, the result of insulation and outside conditions, of building construction and seasonal variation, of multiple factors that combine to create this particular thermal state. The floor, beneath its surface layer of boards, consists of joists and supports, beams and structures that span between walls, that transfer weight to foundations, that create a system of support invisible from above, present but hidden, functional but unseen. These structural elements exist in the space beneath the floor, in the cavity between this room and whatever room or space lies below, performing their role without observation, without acknowledgement, without any awareness of the importance of their function. The walls, similarly, contain within their thickness materials that provide insulation, that prevent sound from passing too easily between rooms, that maintain temperature differences, that serve purposes beyond simply standing upright and supporting the ceiling. These materials exist within the wall cavity, sandwiched between inner and outer surfaces, present but invisible, functional but hidden, serving their purposes without any possibility of direct observation. The ceiling above, beneath its painted surface, attaches to joists that run across its breadth, that provide support, that prevent sagging, that transfer the weight of whatever exists above, whether that be another floor, another room, or simply the roof structure itself. These joists run in parallel lines, spaced at regular intervals, hidden above the plaster, present but unseen, structural but invisible, necessary but unacknowledged. The door, in addition to its handle and hinges, may contain a lock, a mechanism that can secure the door in its closed position, that can prevent it from being opened from one side or the other, that can provide privacy or security depending on its operation. This lock, if it exists, remains unengaged at this moment, neither locked nor unlocked in any active sense, simply present, simply available, simply ready to serve its function if called upon to do so. The window glass, perfectly transparent when clean, may bear on its surface small marks, small spots, evidence of rain-dried, of dust settled, of contact with air and weather over time. These marks, if they exist, affect the transparency only slightly, only minimally, creating small distortions, small variations in clarity that are noticeable only when sought, only when examined, only when attention is directed specifically toward them. The radiator, in its inactive state, contains water that sits still within its channels, trapped between valves, held within the system, waiting for the moment when circulation begins again, when heating is required again, when its function becomes active rather than passive. This water, if it exists within the radiator, is present but doing nothing, contained but not moving, part of the system but not part of any current operation. The air continues in its stillness, in its gentle presence, filling every space that is not occupied by solid matter, by walls and floor and ceiling, by door and window and radiator, by all the physical objects that take up volume, that displace air, that create the shapes and forms around which air must flow. Though at this moment there is no flow, no movement, no disturbance to create currents or drafts. The light continues in its constancy, in its gentle illumination, neither growing brighter as if day were beginning, nor dimming as if day were ending, simply maintaining its level, simply providing its service, simply filling the room with the visibility that allows surfaces to be seen, forms to be distinguished, details to be observed, though no observation currently takes place. No seeing currently occurs, no viewing currently happens. The surfaces remain as they have been, unchanged, unaltered, neither accumulating anything new, nor losing anything old, simply being surfaces, simply existing as boundaries, simply marking the limits of objects, the extents of structures, the edges of forms. These surfaces continue in their various orientations, horizontal and vertical, flat and angular, smooth and textured, each one maintaining its particular characteristics, its specific properties, its individual nature. The room persists in its state of stillness, in its condition of quiet, in its quality of undisturbed peace, neither waiting for something to happen, nor preventing anything from happening, simply existing in the present, simply being what it is, simply continuing in its condition of empty occupancy, of unused space, of potential that remains potential rather than becoming action. The dimensions of the room remain fixed, the measurements unchanged, the proportions constant, the relationships between width and length and height maintaining their ratios, their balances, their geometric relationships. These dimensions were determined when the room was built, when the walls were positioned, when the ceiling height was established, and they continue now as they began, unaltered by time, unaffected by use, unchanged by anything that has happened within this space. The materials from which the room is constructed, the wood and plaster, and paint and glass, each one serves its purpose, each one fulfills its function, each one contributes to the whole that is this room, this space, this volume of controlled environment separated from the larger environment beyond. These materials exist in their current states, neither degrading noticeably nor improving, neither failing in their functions nor exceeding their purposes, simply being what they are, doing what they do, continuing as they continue. The emptiness of the room, the absence of furniture or objects beyond the structural elements, creates a sense of space, of openness, of room that could be filled but currently is not, of volume that could be occupied but currently remains vacant. This emptiness is neither permanent nor temporary, neither desirable nor undesirable, simply the current state, the present condition, the way things are at this moment, subject to change but not currently changing, capable of transformation but not currently transforming. The window continues to separate inside from outside. The door continues to divide this room from adjacent spaces. The walls continue to enclose. The floor continues to support. The ceiling continues to cover. Each element performing its role, each component serving its function, each part contributing to the whole, doing so without effort, without intention, without any consciousness of service, simply existing in position, simply being in place, simply remaining where placed. The light that enters, the air that fills, the surfaces that bound, the space that exists between and within and throughout, all continue in their states, in their conditions, in their modes of being, neither requiring attention nor seeking it, neither demanding consideration nor avoiding it, simply present, simply here, simply now, extending through time without marking it, existing through duration without measuring it. continuing through moments without counting them, simply being, simply remaining, simply persisting in this state of quiet, gentle, undisturbed presence.